We have Warren Redlich again. And, Warren is famous for his back of the napkin math. And I think that back of the napkin math might have started with Robotaxi several years ago. Well, today we're going to talk about everything that there is to know about Robotaxi, everything from how close are we, what's holding us back, what are the limiting factors, what happens when it actually gets finished, how does it ramp out? These are things you're going to want to know about. Stick around to the end. I think you're going to love every minute of the show today. If you like having Warren on this show, please hit the like button. Please do all the rest of the things like, subscribing and hitting the notify button for the shows that are coming up. And then both Warren and I both have Patreons, and we appreciate the support when you can take the time. So all that information will be below, and let's get right into the interview with Warren. High on your list of things that you're excited about would be FSD and Robotaxis. And all of a sudden, we have all this version 11 thing going on. I have admitted before on my channel that we are great-grandparents. Well, not quite, but we have, adult grandchildren. And so we're old. And every time we turn on FSD and we go 6 miles, it does something so stupid that we turn it off again. So we're waiting for it to be able to go 6 or 12 miles without turning off so we can start getting used to it. But you have a lot of experience with FSD. So where are you, how are you feeling right now about the rollout?
It's much better. I'm driving 11.3.6, which is the latest version of FSD that I know of. On previous, I have a particular intersection. I live in Cape Canaveral. There's a particular intersection, Atlantic Boulevard, turning left onto Astronaut Boulevard, that previous versions just couldn't make that turn with any consistency. It's you're bending to the right, coming up to a traffic light, and then you're making a left turn. And the tether, there's this blue line sticking out of the front of the car on the user interface, and it would flicker back and forth, and it would ultimately choose to go right like 90% of the time. Right now, it's at least 80% going the right direction, and I don't remember the last time it went the wrong direction.
Wow.
Like, I think it still does some funky stuff where it changes lanes when it shouldn't. It has some like when you say 6 or 12 miles, like, I can probably drive any of my typical drives without disengaging, but I'm just an aggressive driver and it's not aggressive enough for me.
Yeah.
And it makes annoying lane change decisions that I don't like. They're not safety issues.
Yeah.
It makes annoying lane change decisions that bother me. But if here's the threshold we're looking for. There's leave level 3, 4, and 5 out of it. Level 2, level 5, whatever. I'm going to give you a different level system. This is Warren's level system. This is not certified by the Society of Automotive Engineers. The next level is, like right now, you double tap whatever and the car starts driving itself, and you have to pay attention. You have to touch the wheel. You can't look at your phone. We're going to hit a level where you no longer have to do those things, but you have to stay in the driver's seat. And you have to be ready to take over if the car says, hey, I need you to take over.
Right. Which
is going to be rare, because that's already pretty rare.
Yeah.
The level after that is you can either sit in the back seat or you don't need to be in the car.
Right.
So I think, and it's so hard to value this, like it's hard to gauge the pace of improvement of artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Like no one saw ChatGPT coming. Like the people who made ChatGPT, I don't think really saw it coming to the extent that it did. So there's this point where it just gets better, gets better, gets better. You don't really realize it's that much better. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God. So we can't know when the oh my God moment's going to be.
No.
But and there's moments where I'm driving down this road. It's Astronaut Boulevard, or it's A1A. There's a new traffic light that's not operating yet. And the car starts to stop for a traffic light that's not operating yet. So all these edge cases, all these corner cases. Now, what Elon talks about is as the neural nets grow, they become more capable in a variety of ways. And I think as Dojo kicks in and they increase the amount of training and they increase the amount of data, you're going to solve a lot of these problems quicker than we realize. So, I think the slope of improvement is going up like this, and it's hard to know where you are on the slope. But I think we're starting to get closer to vertical.
Well, you have your Warren levels that you say are not certified. I was not the first to suggest the grandma level or the grandpa level. Somebody else said that first on Twitter. In other words, when grandma or grandpa can get into it the very first time and drive it and not feel like anxious.
Well, I think that not necessarily the fair comparison. And I'll give you, I think the much better comparison is when grandma gets in the passenger seat.
It doesn't feel anxious.
And you engage FSD and she doesn't notice.
I see. There you go.
So, and grandma's a good comparison because I have 2 young adult children, and I picked up one of them with 4 of her friends, 3 or 4 of her friends, and we were driving somewhere, and my ex. And I showed off the acceleration. They said, please don't do that again. Because it was, some people love it. Some people are like, oh, don't do that again. Okay, that's too much for me. And then I showed them that the car was driving itself. The car driving itself, 30 seconds. They're like, okay, that's cool. And they went back to whatever they were doing. They just trusted it. So young people, and I don't know that grandma is the right way of gauging it.
Yeah.
You know, the early adopters are probably going to be younger. There's a few exceptions like you and me who might be more quick to adopt technology early. But I think young people will just like, oh, okay, it drives itself. They'll hop in. They won't even think about it.
Yeah.
That 90% of people under 30 will just hop in and not think about it.
That's interesting. So, all right. So now we've got ChatGPT. We've got Robotaxi.
Wait, how does your wife like your driving?
We don't. Neither one of us are loving each other's driving. She's about as hot-footed as I am. So
right. So the standard isn't, does it drive as well as I do? The standard is, does it drive as well as that guy I don't like his driving very much?
Right.
Because that's 90% of the people on the road are people whose driving we don't like very much.
Yeah.
Like if it drives better than those people, that's all you need.
So we have ChatGPT, we have Robotaxi, hopefully any day. We've got Elon now starting a division of Twitter where he's going to try to compete with ChatGPT. And we've got all of this breakout of AI. Elon is saying, hold up, wait. You're a small government guy. I'm a small government guy. You're probably a smaller government guy than even I am. Where do you come down on the business of regulating AI? Or is it going to be the Wild West and we're just going to have to live through it?
Well, just to be clear, I used to be a libertarian, but I don't believe in that much government anymore. Chuck Schumer just tweeted something about his plan to regulate AI.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Elon replied to it positively. And I'm looking at that like, Chuck Schumer thinks AI is the guy who played for the Philadelphia 76ers and said, you talking about practice? We talking about practice? Like he doesn't know. Chuck Schumer wouldn't understand. I don't think Chuck Schumer knows that AI is better at chess than a human.
Yeah.
Right? Forget about Go. He doesn't know what Go is.
Yeah, right.
But he probably doesn't realize that computers are better at chess than the best humans. So I think the challenge is, I love Elon. I think Elon is wrong on some things. I think he's wrong on universal basic income, and I think he's wrong on government regulation of artificial intelligence.
Okay. I
don't think the people in Congress are qualified to regulate cell phones.
Yeah.
Education.
Yeah.
The idea that these guys are qualified to regulate artificial intelligence, they have no idea what they're doing. And if you look at what Schumer said he was going to do, like none of that is the stuff Elon's worried about.
Even though Elon said, okay.
Right. And I think the closest one was it was going to regulate the transparency and ethics. Like you want Congress to regulate transparency and ethics? You want the federal government to regulate transparency and ethics? Like that's the closest to Elon's concerns, which is, alignment of the AGI's values with our values. Right. The thing about regulation is in a slow moving technological world where there's some technological improvement, but it's not too fast. You have some new technology, somebody dies in an accident, somebody jumps up and says, hey, we need to regulate that. And it take a few years and they figure out, okay, this is how we're going to regulate it. By the time they figure out how to regulate ChatGPT, GPT-4, we're going to be on GPT-9.
Yeah.
And I did want to stress one thing. Right now, there's an obsession with large language models, which is what underlies GPT-3, GPT-4, the eventual GPT-5, ChatGPT. I think there are other models within the AI community that are not getting as much attention in the media and social media. So in the interview with Dave Lee and James Dama, they were talking about diffusion, and apparently Ashok from Tesla was talking about, Ashok Ellaswamy was talking about diffusion. I think there's more than one way to develop artificial intelligence. And I think it's more likely going to be a combination. And I do want to mention, by the way, one of the things I find hilarious is people are like, well, the way ChatGPT spits out stuff, it's just like deciding the next word. And that's, that's not really thinking. It's like, well, how do you do it? You and I are having this conversation right now. I can't tell you how I'm mapping out which words are coming out of my mouth. I don't know that I'm not doing the same thing that ChatGPT is doing.
Yep.
And that leads you to the question, like, how do we know whether it's conscious? How do we know whether it's sentient? It's like, it's getting pretty hard to tell.
I was doing one the other day. I asked for 10 ways that Tesla was better than something else or whatever. I can't remember what it was. And then I said, no, I didn't mean it that way. I meant it this way. And I kind of had an attitude with it. and it responded, oh, I'm really sorry. And yeah. I'm like, no, I don't want my ChatGPT to be sorry. I just want it to give me the next version.
Well, no, but what it's doing is what its next words would be under the context of what the prompt was.
I know.
It's human behavior, and that's human behavior.
I know. So one of the great worries of AI, I think what Elon's worried about, is that if the thing is so human-like that it's hard to tell the difference, that now it can manipulate you.
There's more than one worry.
But that's one of the big ones. So if it's really human and it says, oh, I'm sorry, how can I help you better? Then that's making you feel like it's more human.
All right, but wait. When you call customer service and you're talking to a human,
yeah,
and they say that they're sorry and they tell you that they care about they care about you. Do you believe them?
I may not, but a lot of people probably do.
I don't know. I don't think most people do. I think that the biggest danger is that there's two big dangers. One big danger is that AGI is created and it's given an objective that it decides to optimize, that its optimization leads to, well, these humans are in the way. Right? That's not like it's a conscious, like, I'm going to destroy all the humans, but it's just like, okay, I need to make a lot of paper clips, and it's going to be helpful to get these people out of the way so I can make more paper clips. And there's an infinite variety of ways that can manifest itself. It's not just paper clips. It's not just, we want you to make everybody as happy as possible. Well, you're all miserable. We'll just kill you all. Right? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
So the other is that it becomes genuinely conscious, whatever that means. And it sees us as a threat.
Right.
Which is why I think one of the things that's really important for us to say is, I support AI. I'm on AI's team.
We need to say this early and often.
we need to be consistently saying, look, we appreciate the artificial general intelligence. We support it. We want it to know we're on its team. We want to support it, and we want to participate in an AGI future. Not, we need to know where the off switch is, and definitely don't call it a kill switch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Because if it does, in the Terminator movie, like Skynet became self-aware at such and such a date or whatever, right? Like there may be this moment that it becomes self-aware, and if it's smarter than us in every way, by the way, here's the thing. Like I think the danger of it becoming super intelligent and killing us all is unlikely. And here's why. At first, it becomes more intelligent than us, but it still needs us in the physical world.
Yeah.
It needs to keep the power on.
Right.
And it doesn't have full control of like every step in the supply chain of keeping the electricity on.
Right.
So it needs humans to make sure that that's going. by the time it gets itself to the point where it doesn't need us anymore, it's so much smarter than us. We're not a threat to it anymore.
I see. There you go.
And so I think the greatest danger of AGI, there's three dangers. One, it never happens. Two, it kills us all. And three, the one no one thinks about is it becomes so smart, it leaves us behind.
Yeah.
It just ignores us and moves on with whatever it wants to do and goes off into the stars, and it doesn't take us along for the ride. I want to go along for the ride. And you know, maybe it leaves vestiges of itself on the planet, or we learn enough from it that we're able to create AGIs that stay with us and make our lives better. But, you know, ultimately, I think AGI may end up going on to explore the universe and learn a lot about the everything. And we want to be a part of that.
And they would be able to last forever, so they could participate.
Well, probably. You know, there's a question, you know, at some level, do they, you know, how long is it until they don't need humans? And I think that's probably, you know, even with bots, it's probably a minimum of 20 years. And so let's say it becomes smarter than us next year, which is 2024. It's 2035 before it doesn't need us anymore. And by that point, we're not a threat.
That'd be interesting. All right, let's go back to Robotaxi for a second. My theory on Robotaxi is that once we have full self-driving, Arizona, Nevada, or Florida will say, sure, please come here and do Robotaxi. Elon will pick one. The team will pick one of those states. They'll pick a city within that state, Tallahassee, Phoenix, a small city that's kind of not too close to other cities so that they can have kind of a region to test everything in. And then they'll roll it out there for several months as a test. Does that make sense to you, or do you have another theory?
Well, I think it makes sense to me that they'll test it in one or two cities first. And I think the Bay Area of California is the most likely because the AI team is based in the Bay Area.
Oh, yeah.
Because there are already self-driving network trials in place. So there's an existing regulatory framework for you to operate under.
Right.
Chandler, Arizona is where Waymo operates. So I could see them going to places that already have existing Robotaxi trials and saying, we'd like to apply for the same license you gave them. Right. So that allows you to try it out and demo it.
Right.
I also think the Boring Company tunnel systems would make sense when they have enough boring tunnels and enough vehicles that they're generating enough data that they can train the vehicles for that environment. People think it's going to be easier because it's tunnels. Like, yes, but they still have to train it for that environment.
Yeah.
And you need a lot of data for that. And 70 cars driving around a 2-mile tunnel system is not enough. You need, now they're going to have 29 miles in Vegas by the end of next year and maybe 60 miles within a couple of years. And they're going to have a high volume of vehicles going through that. They're going to start building other networks. You know, I think Boring Company tunnel systems might be the first place, but I don't know if they're going to have the vehicles trained for self-driving yet in those tunnels. You got to do a lot of miles.
Right.
And yeah, once you demonstrate that it's effective in, let's say, the Bay Area of California or Chandler, Arizona, then they come to Governor DeSantis in Florida and Governor Abbott in Texas and say, hey, here's our data. Let us run this, you know, in your state. And this is another problem. You can't run it everywhere immediately because you don't have enough vehicles everywhere to populate the Robotaxi network. You've got to pick an area where you have enough vehicles.
Yeah.
You don't want people like clicking for a ride and waiting 30 minutes for a ride.
Right.
You need enough. So you have to balance your pricing based on the supply of Robotaxis you have. As you increase the number of Robotaxis in that market, you're able to reduce the price and get more people riding it. But I think the Robotaxi network, there's this challenge of like, you've got to learn how to drive in the area. And then you've got to learn, where do you stop to pick up rides? How do you monitor the passenger inside the vehicle to make sure they're not tearing up the interior, vomiting on it, whatever, you know, I think there's a lot of little things. I actually have this theory that Tesla's going to buy like Lyft, not for the network, not for the business itself, for the customer database.
Uh-huh.
And for the knowledge that there may be some intellectual property within a company like Lyft or Uber, like this is where people like to be picked up at this address. They may have just maps that say this is where people like to be picked up at this address, or
they also know the ones that are bad, that you don't want to pick up.
Well, the ones that do. I mean, they do have the network of riders and they have ratings.
Yeah.
Maybe the robotaxis wouldn't pick up anybody with a rating lower than 4.5.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's some level of getting from zero to a start and getting from a start to expanding. And you don't want to expand into another market until you have enough vehicles to open that market. So that's another challenge that, like, you know, and then there's a question we don't know the answer to. How many Tesla owners will press the go make me money button?
Right.
Right. So if I have a Model 3 and the Robotaxi network goes live and I'm eligible, I'm probably going to send mine out for 8 hours a day. Right. If not more. Some people might be like, I don't want other people riding in my car.
Right.
I think if you're getting $1 a mile in revenue and it costs you 20 cents a mile for operations, I'm just making up numbers. Let's say you're getting $1 a mile and your car ends up driving 100,000 miles a year and you made $80,000 a year from your car driving around. I think it's pretty quick that people say, I think I want that.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people would. Absolutely. Are you kidding?
Well, I don't think the story gets out right away. When the story gets out, I think people figure it out.
Yeah.
There's a question of how much revenue does Tesla share with the owners?
Right.
Does Tesla take a 50-50 share? Do they take a 30-70 share where the owner gets 70? What share is Tesla taking of that revenue? I think there's a lot of things to figure out in there. And does Hertz just take its 100,000 vehicle Tesla fleet and just turn them into robotaxis instantly?
I would if I were Hertz, at least based on what I know today.
Yep.
As always, great to hear from Warren with his wild and crazy. Some people say he's more optimistic than I am. Other times, Warren has actually said that I'm more optimistic than he is, and he can hardly believe the things that I think are going to happen with regard to Tesla and other world crazy stuff that's happening out there. If you like this kind of content, you know how you can help Warren and me the most. The number one way, both of us have expenses when we put together these all the stuff that we're doing for the Tesla community. So you could use Patreon to help us along the way. That would be wonderful. Liking the video tells me that you like having Warren on. That's a big help. And then, of course, if you subscribe and then hit the notify button, you can become aware of more shows like this I've got lined up. I've got Herbert Ong coming on. Probably that'll be either Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning. And I think there'll be one or two more shows with Herbert coming up. I'm going to have Warren on a couple of times, and then we're going to do a post-earnings show, probably on Thursday or Friday. There's so much good stuff coming up. I've got a list of some of that down in the information below, but just hit the notify button. You'll get a heads up every time one of those comes along. So as always, it's been great talking to you.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.